The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 regular City Council meeting of October 25th, 2023. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez, Councilmember Arias, Councilmember Weir, Councilmember Smith,
I am here.
Councilmember Freeman,
Here.
Councilmember Gray,
Here.
and Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Thank you. In keeping with Council's resolution, the public statements portion is now divided into two periods. There's a period for items listed on the meeting agenda and items not on the meeting agenda. Statements for items listed on this afternoon's agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total per agenda item. Statements regarding items not listed on the agenda are also given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, give them to the clerk. She'll give copies to the council. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give your completed card to the city clerk. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on this afternoon's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda portion. Those speakers will be called during the non-agenda portion of the meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items listed on this afternoon's agenda?
Mayor Go, we have not received any speaker cards for items listed on today's agenda. We have, however, received a speaker card for a non-agenda item from Michael Turnipseed.
Thank you. And while he's coming forward, welcome to all of you. I see some students out there. How many of you are from Bakersfield College? All right, well, go Renegades. Anyone from CSUB? All right, Renegades, you dominate tonight. Thank you for being here. Welcome, Mr. Turnipseed.
Welcome, Mayor, members of the council. I've got a packet of information I'm providing to you with 4 documents. First, I have an email chain between the current tax director, Adam Cohen, the public works director, and the city clerk about appropriate information pre-meeting being posted for agendas. Yesterday, we attended a meeting. Material was not presented so early. It was a high-speed rail presentation. It was much different than what the staff report said. It was misleading. It says, and to quote, anyway, that basically the report's all we have to give you and that's it. Even we're not responsible because it's just pictures. Well, there's a lot more to the presentation than just pictures. Here is staff report. Less than an actual page of printed material. When you go to the high-speed rail report, though, it's got a lot of interesting things in here. And basically, the pictures of what our station's going to look like and a bunch of other information. Since I don't have all that much time, I'm then going to skip forward to the Fresno Bee yesterday afternoon story about Fresno's high-speed rail station. And as you look forward, there's a picture of their high-speed rail station to be. And the outside of it, and a couple more pages back, you're going to see the inside of their very beautiful high-speed rail station. And if you look at the pictures that are inside the report that High-Speed Rail gave you, it looks like our entryway is going to be open air with like different vendor boxes just around the side, as you can tell by the picture that was in their presentation. And finally, because of all this happening, we presented a comment letter yesterday for the record, and we're going to follow up with agencies about making sure that people, residents, and communities are notified of what's really going on with their federal and state transportation dollars. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry I couldn't talk about high-speed rail this evening. I'm not going to be here. I asked for a chance to talk under that item and was told, well, that's another meeting. Just another way the city clamps down on public participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turnipseed. Any other public speakers, Madam Clerk?
No other speaker cards were received.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Reports item 3A, Recreation and Parks Department Master Plan and Martin Luther King Park Reimagining Conceptual Plan Progress Update. A blue memo was provided regarding this item, transmitting correspondence received. An additional blue memo was provided on this item, transmitting an updated PowerPoint.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Director Rick Anthony will provide additional context. I just wanted to begin by saying it's very typical for cities to do long-range planning. We're doing that in the general plan for land use and many other elements. It's also important to do that in the world of parks and our recreation facilities. And to put into context, we have had a master plan for essentially the last 20 years, and it really has been time to revisit that. The circumstances and the landscape have changed notably, and we all want to look forward to our future as well. And this has been a process that's been envisioned for many years and underway really for this entire last year. And so Rick and our consultants will walk you through where that has taken us, and some of this is aspirational, but also a lot of it is, how do we plan and look toward the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Rick Anthony.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today. Certainly just want to thank you all for your continued support. Also want to give a shout out to my senior staff here who's joined us. We really have been a galvanized group through this particular effort. Unfortunately, our project manager, Mrs. Cindy Mendoza, had some health challenges at the last minute, so she was not able to join us, but MIG has a strong bullpen. So we have here with us Noé Noyola, and he will begin this presentation, and certainly we're open to asking any questions throughout, or if you prefer, at the end of this presentation.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon. My name is Noé Noyola. I'm with MIG, Morris Fano Goldsman. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm pleased to share project recommendations for related to the Park and Rec Master Plan and the revised site and building concepts for MLK Park. All right. As you recall from the project update last November, the master planning process includes several key parts, including the MLK Park site master plan, an updated Kaiser Permanente Sports Village site concept, the central and citywide, central city and citywide tree plan, and the Kern River Parkway management plan. Each of these elements have been guided by community input as well as advisory group guidance to ensure they are realistic, implementable, and achievable, and reflect the diverse community input and priorities and needs. We have used this guidance to develop a comprehensive set of recommendations, but the bottom line is that community members would like far more improvements and new development than may be feasible in the next 10 years. We'd like your guidance to identify key projects to include in a sustainable 10-year action plan. So for today's update, I'd like to start with MLK Park, a project that's near and dear to my heart for sure, a project that is on track to deliver a safe, healthy, and vibrant community space when it's renovated in the next 2 or 3 years. As noted in this timeline, we've finalized the site, the building, and pool concepts, which we will share with you today. We are moving forward into the next phase, which includes 3% construction documents that will position the city for a streamlined design build process that will reduce the risk, proceed more rapidly, and hold costs stable as the city proceeds into construction. At this pace, the grand reopening for the revitalized park is expected in early 2027. The park design that I'm about to share was based on input of over 1,000 residents and stakeholders. This included a pop-up event at the open house at MLK Park during Halloween, the Extravaganza spring event, which I know some of you have been at. These events ensure that the neighborhood and the park visitors had a chance to share their ideas and also poll on their preferred concepts. It also included community connections, and so these were, in essence, conversations with community groups, 14 community organizations, including, for example, Owens School, Community Gardeners, the Southeast Neighborhood Partnership, among others. Youth had a chance, you can see here, youth had a chance to get involved with the My Wish for MLK Park activity, which collected about 27 drawings. Finally, there was a community-wide survey with 1,019 participants. 78 of those were written for specifically MLK Park. Now, community input and design options were cross-checked with key meetings with our MLK advisory team, who participated in at least 5 facilitated meetings to shape the park. A meeting with 18 potential park partners and from the community helped identify options to leverage potential partnerships and contributions and resources. The design process also guided through conversations with City Council and several different groups, including senior management. This cross-collaboration helps to ensure that the type of park is actually what the community wants and needs, and also that it's implementable, importantly. So last November, we shared with you the community's goals for the park. These are shown here in green. I'm not going to go over them today, but since then, we've refined the design to better position the center as a health and wellness hub, and resiliency hub, while incorporating programs and options that will help spark local and broader revitalization of the area, which I think is an important feature. This is going to be a catalyst project, we hope, for the broader revitalization of the area. Now, the site is anchored by the Northeast Center, the community center on the northeast corner. Here you'll see here at California and Owen Street. This was a key recommendation from staff and from advisory members. It also positions the sports fields on the south end, kind of where they are now, a community garden, a sports courts near Owens Primary School. This would hopefully have easy access for school involving partnering programs with school children, ideally. Now, these are some of the renderings that we've recently produced. These are, some of the new things. Hopefully, you'll get a really good sense of the site. So just imagine yourself walking through this revitalized park. This is looking northwest corner. This is, in essence, California and King Streets. You get a sense of just how the currently empty and underutilized site is completely transformed into a set of vibrant and active spaces. So while the main entrance is on the other side, on Owens, the entry you see here is from South King Street. It opens into a tree-lined promenade, since what we call an alley. And it's just really a key feature for the park that was desired. Here's another view of the entry plaza from King Street. It's shaded picnic areas just behind it, lots of public art, lots of foliage, and of course, shade. This is another important and key component for this that we heard from this community. The shaded play area in the same northwest corner provides universal and inclusive play elements for younger and older children. Okay. The adjacent spray ground is also a focal point of larger gathering and picnic spaces. It provides a free place for cooling off during, Bakersfield very hot summers. But the water can be turned off and can also be created for an expanded event venue and hardscape space or play space for kids, with also the ringed wall for, just hanging around. You can see here, there's 3 full outdoor basketball courts that are directly adjacent to the gymnasium, which is going to be that building over there behind that you see in the white. And this, we hope, will support tournaments that take place in the gym, team practices, skills development, and of course, pickup games. Now, a distinctive and colorful lenticular will surround the courts. These are steel vertical panels that, when viewed from different angles, provide different images. The idea is that this will add some privacy for the players and also hopefully some safety. We've heard that as a major concern, especially it being on California Street. And it will also prevent balls from rolling onto the road. Now, hopefully this helps in giving you a sense of the historic context and also the type of art and the type of identity that we want to instill in this park. On the opposite side of the courts, next to the multi-use banquet room in the community center, is the amphitheater and an events plaza. So just imagine yourself, and this is again a very big recommendation from the community, imagine yourself movies at the park or music or farmers markets, crafts fairs, other programmed events, and other ways that support local vendors and park activation, which is key to this park. Moving around the community center to the northeast corner at California and Owens is a memorial plaza. This is intended to commemorate Black veterans and pay homage to the many that were served by the former County Veterans Center that was located precisely at this corner. Looking in from the main entry and shaded gathering space near Owen Street, this portion of the tree-lined promenade allows park visitors and families to stroll right by the shaded pool area that's going to be on that right. And you can see a glimpse of the slide there in the yellow. The pool will have a shallow sided entry and a moderately deeper end to make it ideal for water safety programs, swimming lessons, water fitness classes, lap swimming, and pool events. Plus, the water slide that I just mentioned, specifically targeting nearby residents, but also addressing capacity issues that we've heard about at McMurtry Pool as more and more people look to cool off in the summer. Now, this space is a community garden. You can see it's not far from the community center. It's going to be close to the kitchen, which together can be used to support healthy cooking and healthy eating programs, as well as providing nearby residents and hopefully Owens Primary School with an opportunity to grow fresh produce. Now, the central area supports multi-use sports courts suitable for pickleball and futsal. These are two of the fastest growing sports in recent times throughout the country. So there are even informal spaces here for cornhole or outdoor ping pong. I mentioned the sports courts on the southeast corner. This is along King Street. These fields anchor the southwest corner as another way to support health and fitness, as this is an important health and fitness hub as we're describing it. We definitely heard clear feedback from the community about ensuring that there is sufficient parking for this park. So that's shown here, and that includes a drop-off zone for seniors and children at the front of the community center too. Now, this might be the first time that you're seeing this, but looking into the community center itself, the design has 5 separate spaces that can be programmed jointly or used separately when the rest of the building is closed. So, for example, one is the building. Number one is the actual gym and fitness facility that has 2 full-size courts plus 1 in the middle. 2 will be ideally the partnership space where a health partner can be able to come in and maybe set up shop as a clinic or some other kind of health service related spot. Number 3 is a shared space for vendors. 4 is the aquatic center, the pool that I just mentioned. And 5 is what we have called a cafetorium, but really it's a multi-use event center that could be, for instance, rented out for quinceañeras, for example. Now, this is the second floor. The second floor is proposed to house rec and park staff and helping address the shortage of space at City Hall and the need for stronger staff presence at the park itself for continued safety. Now, the cost of the park is still within the target range discussed earlier. The majority of costs are associated with the first floor of the community center, with much needed indoor recreation space for all of East Bakersfield. So while the amenities could be reduced to match available funds, there has been strong interest from the community to include all the proposed components that I've just mentioned, which could be funded through community donations or potential partnerships that would support park renovation or programming. Tomorrow, in fact, we are formally launching a fundraising campaign to raise approximately $20 million needed to achieve the community's dream for this site. So, with council support, we will fine-tune details as we prepare the 30% construction documents. And by working together with private partners, this collaborative campaign shows how we can spark a much desired revitalization in East Bakersfield. So, anyone ready to make a donation, you can, I was gonna say, just go ahead and scan the QR code. I invite everybody here to scan the QR code and, make your donation. All donations are gladly accepted and deductible, tax deductible. So I know this is a quick overview. This council has already approved the next phase of the process, so unless there are any clarifying questions, I'd like to share the recommendations from the rest of the Rec and Parks Master Plan.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
I apologize. I'll save my comments till the end of the presentation.
Councilmember Freeman.
Just a couple of quick questions. One is the 30% construction funds for 30% of drawings. Did that come from a grant, or is that part of our budget this year?
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman, Mayor and Council. That came from an allocation that we had made within the last 2 budget cycles for Public Safety Vital Services tax. That's funding the design. We also set aside some ARPA monies for this park, $5.6 million. That won't, this contract won't eat up all of that, but there's a portion of that in addition to the budgeted funds within the PSVS.
So how much does it cost to go to 30% construction drawing? Is there a budget?
It's $2.4 million, and just about all of that will come out of the PSVS. There's just a small portion that will probably, like a couple $100,000, I think, Rick, that'll have to come out of ARPA funds.
Okay, and that's already that
That's
was already
Yep,
approved.
Yep, budgeted and in the bank, yeah.
Okay. Well, I've repeatedly said one comment. Sounds like the train has left, but I really would like to see the park budget and a quote project in the building as like 2 different phases, because I'm concerned about the numbers are so large between the two, 80 million or plus, that I'm concerned about being able to get it done. So, and the other, so I probably wouldn't have been in favor of going, the park design I think is fine. The building design, I would not have gone ahead doing construction drawings this early from a conceptual thing, but that's my opinion. I'm not, apparently I don't have to make that decision. The other thing is before you go to construction drawings on the building, I would, because I've done this many times, I would strongly recommend, especially this building, that you've never built this building, as a concept, that you model it, you do scale model with dimensions and furnishings, and that you take your experts and the ward member, whatever, and critique and say, does that work getting to the gym that way? Do we really want that thing across? Now that we see it in a scale like a dollhouse, now do we see it there? Because visuals really help people think. Absolutely. Is that really the right design? Do we need that? Does that need to be 10 feet wider? Is that kitchen big enough? If you don't go through that exercise, you'll make mistakes. I just tell you. We used to do that by having to rebuild the house after we did the model home. Well, that garage needs to be 5 feet wide, or tear the wall out. The kitchen isn't big enough, add 3. It'll help you if you scale model it, and then you all critique it. So I guess that's just a suggestion.
Thank you.
And then I know as we move forward with the rest of, I guess, the master vision, I don't know when this gets discussed, but I would really like to see us, a couple of comments. One, kind of break into kind of separate parts, because I think MLK Park, raising money for MLK Park, the vision is different than the 10-year master plan of all the other parks in town. I really don't like blending these into one bucket. I think they're huge projects and visions that need to be thought through somewhat separately. Especially MLK Park, if we're going to have a fundraising campaign, I think it would be very helpful if maybe we've already done it. Christian, I've been on a lot of these university fundraising, and always bring a consultant in first when they do a lot of assessment, and you said, here's how much money we want to raise, and they tell you whether you're going to be able to raise it. they're experts at this, is all they do is say, well, here's how they do an analysis, talk to stakeholders, and say, all right, here's your probability of success at that number. And they may make suggestions of, if you're going to do this, this is the way you better go about it. I think that part of this, and I've shared this with the consultants, is that I've been arguing for it and haven't got it done yet, that this needed to be an amenity for a new village. And we skipped the village part, we just did the amenity. I don't think that flies, and I thought, at least if our consultants can do a little vision piece, it may not be exactly what's going to happen, but give us a few alternatives around the park, draw it up, watercolor, make it. This is a vision of what we might do with this area as opposed to this park. And if you show, well, these are going to be a retail here, and the sides could be wide, and here, and I asked them to concentrate on the streetscape on both sides, which we don't see in here. I know you don't go to construction drawings, this is the vision piece, but when you go to raise money for the park, and the rest of it looks like the old neighborhood, it's not very exciting. You're going to someone cold turkey, I'd like you to give us $5 million. You've got to get emotional and excited. I think the visuals really help. So showing this is the long-term vision, that's all it is, that'll be phase 2 or 3. But this is the community that this park is going to stimulate. I think we need it. Someday I hope we do a much broader plan. I know we talked a little bit about a focused specific plan for that area is a very good idea. Needs another conversation, but I wouldn't want to forget that conversation because I think that's what you need. I'm not quite sure. I'm not saying it's 10 square miles. I don't know, but it's maybe less than 1 square mile, but it's a focused specific plan for everything. So you start to see what's going to make this park successful. Because I think those other pieces will be needed. And I think the vision of them will be needed to successfully raise money and get people excited. So those are my comments for now. Thanks.
If I may, Mayor and Council, just a few comments. Appreciate the feedback, Councilmember Freeman. We have talked about breaking out the budget into subcomponents of the project so we can understand what are the costs of each of those subcomponents. And so as we come back, with that initial design work, we'll be able to see the costs for each of the segments of the project, which I think gives, again, the community and council options on thinking about funding. Secondly, we have put together a framework for where we think that there's significant grant dollars that could be pursued and available for this project. But then also essentially a framework for the campaign around fundraising. I think a good suggestion that we could work with a consultant. We have pulled community resources into a fundraising plan that have done this before and have some good experience in this space. But good feedback about having some professional technical assistance on that effort. And then lastly, on the village concept that you mentioned of the conceptual vision for the neighborhood level, we are pursuing that through a separate contract through the Economic and Community Development Department. They've got funding to create a visualization for that neighborhood and 2 other neighborhoods so that we can leverage this park investment to really, see the big picture of the whole neighborhood.
Well, if they can prioritize the first one being around MLK Park and kind of accelerate that, I think you're going to benefit from that in your fundraising.
Yep, that's the top of the list.
The other thing is the document sort of said, I think at the end, it sounded like you wanted the council to say, oh, whatever, resolve that or whatever. Hey, we agree with this direction. Well, you're asking us 3 different things. We agree with MLK, we agree with 27 new parks, 10 here at $1 million per acre, and we agree with these things. Well, those are all separate things to say to make a blanket agreement. I would much prefer to say, do you like this kind of direction on MLK Park or not? Or, well, we probably don't. I'm still concerned about the cost, but, the whole thing, buying off on the whole package, there's kind of different parts of that package, and I don't think that they should be mushed together. I won't be able to say I can mush them all together, I guess. That part, and I know we'll have other questions, but I don't know how necessary that really is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Gray.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. It's a beautiful park.
Hope so.
My biggest concern is how we're going to pay for it. And I've already raised these concerns, in the past. So can you kind of go through what you all are thinking again as far as the finances of this behind the park?
I'll leave this to the director.
Absolutely, thank you. We certainly know this is a huge, huge challenge. And our efforts are going to be focused throughout the city. Tomorrow at the press conference, you all got some invitations there, but we have already spoken with a lot of the major health systems and hospitals about a potential partnership, which we hope does translate in some real dollars and real capital help on the project, as well as continuing to get grants. We were very fortunate that one state assembly member contributed $2 million, and she will be there tomorrow as well. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to ask for state funding, federal funding, get as many grants as possible. And I just believe that together, as we work together for this common effort, that can become a reality. So those things can be addressed at each phase, as City Manager alluded to. Getting off the ground, we'll know a little bit better as we sharpen the pencil and get closer with the finished product of what we truly are needing. And so we can begin to plan that, even if it means we have to phase it out additional years.
Okay, in our last discussion we had, it was mentioned, Rick, about even maybe possibly a $40 million loan. Are we still considering that?
I'm considering it. I think that when you look, as you work through the rest of the master plan, and you really see the realities of how far behind we are in just basic amenities that our residents expect, we can't keep doing business as usual and expect to make progress. If we do not have some real solutions, some out-of-the-box solutions, I think we'll be here in 10 years in the same situation. I know there may be some opposing opinions, but I feel strongly that we need to be bold, and we need to recognize the time that we're in. We also need to recognize how far behind that we've fallen, even though a lot of folks may disagree. I've been in the communities, I've been in these stakeholder meetings. There are a lot of folks that feel that we should have more, especially when you compare us to other cities this size. They just really feel like the quality of life amenities in Bakersfield are very sparse. They are in some neighborhoods pretty good, but I would say citywide in most neighborhoods they are not.
Well, I would have to say I'd be one of those opposing opinions on getting the city into any debt over this. And you mentioned in the times that we're living in, that's all the more reason that our industry in Kern County is threatened by Sacramento, and to march forward in that way. I think all of us on this dais want to address and be able to invest in a nice community park. There's no doubt. I'm in agreement with that. But I'm not in agreement with putting the city at risk with debt, or our citizens at risk with debt, because then that means there's other things that the city may need down the road, and we don't have the capacity to do the needs and not just the wants. I think this plan is beautiful. I mean, I told Christian yesterday, it's beautiful. But I think we need to really be careful and sharpen that pencil up of what are really the needs of that community, that part of Bakersfield, and what is the wish list. Because the wish list can begin to blur the real need. And the wish list is what's driving this high cost. I mean, I look further when we get down into this a little bit further tonight. We're talking about 10 new parks in Bakersfield for $100 million. 10, and we're doing one park, which will end up being $100 million before this is over, said and done.
Just to bring a little clarity, we currently have 11 undeveloped parks. So those parks, these communities have been waiting for a number of years, and we
Right.
simply don't have the funding to do that. But I certainly respect and understand your concern. If I could say, there are plenty of city models that take on reasonable debt and is able to provide services at a reasonable time to the residents. I'll leave the details to those that are smarter than me, but I believe some reasonable debt with reasonable service to that debt is what a lot of cities are successful with, and there's models out there as well. But certainly, again, that's a conversation for another matter, and I'm sure city manager would weigh in on that as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an important conversation to have in the beginning phases of this, so that, you know, again, if we start to build a house and we don't know how much it's going to cost, that's not very wise. Or if we don't know where the money is coming from. So I would hope that this is not a project that we dive into without the funds available to us in the bank, knowing that we can complete the project. I do like what our city manager said, that we need to break this out into subcomponents so that we can, as the money comes in, we can build it in phases rather than tear the whole thing up. And then you know, so-and-so corporation decide they're not going to give us that $10 million after all. These are lessons that I've learned in life, and I think they apply to even something as broad as this, as big as this. Because you've got a real big BHAG vision here. There's no doubt about it. Yes.
No, yeah, I appreciate the comments, Councilmember and Mayor and Council. I think there's a lot of wisdom in what Councilmember Gray is sharing with us, and I would agree. I think we won't move forward with a design build type contract for actual, you know, final design and construction until we have the fiscal plan in place. We wouldn't move forward until we have that plan in place. I think also it is aspirational, but I think also, you know, in a way that can be transformational. But on the specific topic of the fiscal plan, we have a little bit of time between now and when we get to 30% design. And in that time, we do need to take a hard look at what are the grants that we're going to pursue, the level of confidence that we have in going towards those grants, getting some additional even direct allocations of funding. And, you know, we're going to be going through a process at mid-year where we're taking a hard look at the funding that we continue to set aside in our both of our contingency set-asides, our reserves, our one-time monies that is for one-time projects, and then go into the budget cycle knowing, you know, where we're at in our fiscal stability. Again, after another year of, you know, we've continued to watch for potential downturn in the economy. We don't see it, but you know, there is still that sense that it could still be coming. In some ways, it's been frustrating that it could be a longer sort of, they call it now, you know, a stag session instead of a recession because it's just stagnant for a long time. But I think we'll know a lot more by the time we get to our next fiscal cycle in the budget, where we're at with our one-time monies, our reserves, and be able to do some projections on ongoing unallocated balance, you know, in some of our funding sources. We'll be a much better spot next spring in the budget cycle to lock in more of the fiscal plan for this project. But agree, we wouldn't move forward until that's clear.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Christian, approximately what percentage of public-private funding are you envisioning? Just a split between those.
Depending on how you define public, if you define public as
Governmental versus private.
Our aspiration is to really look at something that's probably in the 50% range, where we could get private donations in the 50% range. So thank you for the question, Mayor. And we do think that even that 50% that may be public would be a variety of public sources, not just exclusively city. We're talking about, again, multiple state and federal grants. There are some federal grants out there today that are in the $10 million range. You get one of those and, you've got a really big chunk that we've been able to acquire. So we're being very thoughtful about the potential funding sources, and Rick is not leaving any stone unturned. He knows how much of an aspirational goal that it is, but we do think we can get probably to a 50-50 mix.
Thank you. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to tip my cap off to the consultants and to Rick. I think in order to fundraise big, we've got to also dream big. And I'll make the argument that this particular project is not a want, but actually a need. For many community members who grew up in this area, members of my family, it was either, you had two options. It was either the Friendship House at Cap K, or it was MLK Community Center. Those were the two beacons of light for you and your siblings to go to after school, as opposed to alternative, things to do. And it was these two community centers that have, helped so many professionals that we see around town develop into the professionals that they are today. And this is an opportunity for us to turn the ship around and recreate that vision in a modern way. So I appreciate this, and I'm so excited to finally have some visuals about what this is going to look like. The other thing that I don't want to do as the former representative for this area is to make a promise that we can't deliver on. I think that's the last thing that we need to do to this community. Rick, Christian, and I, we've been in meetings after meetings where we hear from community residents who talk about how they've been promised to, in a big way, whether that's street improvements, park improvements, and the like, and we've closed their doors on them and have not answered their calls. So I really appreciate Councilmember Freeman's point about phasing in this project. Have we thought about that, and how would that look like?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Certainly that is always part of the conversation. If we were to fall short of our certain goals that we've created for ourselves, then we obviously would take more time to make sure that we could phase this project in. I agree with you 100%. Really, failure or turning back is not an option. Maybe lengthening the time, but as long as people see meaningful progress, I think that we'll still be in better shape than we have been in years past. Councilmember Freeman mentioned something about the emotional ties that really help people fundraise. Well, I encourage you all to come out tomorrow, because I've been blown away at the connections from many, many of our leaders to that park. You will hear a lot of emotion. You will hear a lot of people that are supportive of this big vision. And I think it has to become a reality. Whether we do it in 3 phases or we do it in 6 phases, we have to get this done.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick. And I know that you and your team have been bird dogging this particular project. So $85 million, there's definitely some sticker shock
It is.
To that number. How has your team already started to strategize and maybe even pare down certain components to bring that number down? I know the cost of doing business just skyrocketed, but have you guys already done that analysis?
And it was a shock to us as well when we saw the numbers. I can say even before we got to this final concept, in these stakeholder meetings, we really tried to explain to them the park is only so big. We cannot do everything that everybody wanted. So even some of their ideas, we immediately decided that wasn't the direction to go in. But From the conceptual phase, we looked at the total square footage and we actually shrunk that down completely. We even removed a couple of the rooms that we thought were redundant or that could be used in various ways instead of the standalone options that we're currently. And we'll continue to do that through the 30% design. I don't think that we've made promises that making some minor tweaks are going to upset a lot of the community members, as long as that basic tenet of what we talked about is still present there.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate all the great work, and just excited that my friend and mentor Michael Turnipseed is in the room, because this, in my mind, is truly a game-changer project. This is something that we have been working towards and is going to completely transform this community, and I'm looking forward to the neighborhood assessment so that we could talk about how we leverage this project for future economic and residential development.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Anthony, for your leadership and for your work and the hard work of all those folks in Rec and Parks who have been pushing this forward and pushing our master plan forward for now 2 years. It was in November of 2021 when we first launched this effort from the dais. And so I appreciate all the work. I've been really impressed with being part of the stakeholder meetings and the level of engagement we received from community members. And I want to thank them as well for their honest feedback and for their challenges and for their aspirations that they've shared from us. And Councilmember Arias mentioned it. This is not a want. To say that this is a want is a slap in the face to so many community members who are in desperate need for quality community spaces, for a community center to bring families together, to bring our community together, to help build more prosperous community. We're so quick to try to invest in resources to address crime and concerns on the back end. But here we have an opportunity to really invest in the front end and build community, build prosperity for so many of our families. And I think if we lose that vision, we'll fall short of something significant. I think we've all been able to visit world-class cities throughout the world. And one of my observations as I've traveled is I've seen significant investments in parks, in community spaces, in just basic public infrastructure by people of the past generations, that have benefited so many people thereafter. And it's because they had vision, and it's because they had boldness, and it's because they had the will to make it happen, to figure out how to get the funding. And that's what our city has been about. Look at historically, Rabobank Arena, Centennial Plaza used to be called. There was questions about how we're going to pay for that. But the council at the time pushed forward, had a bold vision. And now that arena has paved the way for so many wonderful community experiences. It's far more profitable this year than ever before. And it's benefiting and helping revitalize and continue to generate new economic activity for our downtown. And it's that same level of vision that we ought to have when it comes to this community space. Same spirit. This is our opportunity to invest and serve the individuals and the families and the children, not just this year and next year and the year after that, but for 50 years down the road, 60 years, 70 years. It's our opportunity to make something happen that's significant and special and unique and inspiring for all Bakersfield residents. And I pray to God that we do not fall short of that vision. This is our chance to make that major investment. And there are some concerns that we've heard about finances, and I believe that we will figure it out, that we will find the financing. But I think it's also important for us to recognize where we've been and how steadfast we've been and how smart and responsible we've been fiscally. You know, when I first joined the council, it was the council and the city's plan to finance the Centennial Corridor and the remainder of TRIP by bonding $270 million. This council was ready to bond $270 million for that roads project. Do you know how much we've had to bond? Zero. Zero because of federal grants, because of state grants. And the reason why we got those state grants was because we put everything into design and we were shovel ready. And so when those federal grant opportunities came about, when those state opportunities came about, we were competitive. And we were able to finance the project with zero debt obligation. That's the same savvy we need to bring to this project. The other thing is, that I'm very proud of, is that 5 years ago, our rainy day reserve for our general fund was $13.1 million. Today, it's $52.8 million. Facility reserve was $3.8 million. Today, it's $5.2 million. We continue to build that reserve, and that is because of the commitment we've made to the public of being fiscally responsible. And it's because of the investment, frankly, that the public has made through PSVS. And so I think that we need to, I think leadership requires boldness and it requires vision. And I think that it's with that that we ought to pursue this project in its full entirety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you. First, I want to say these renderings are beautiful. Someone is very talented with Lumion, and I can see that. So congratulations to our folks working on making this vision come to life. It truly helps to see the visual and really understand how beautiful this project is. And to echo the sentiments of my colleagues that this is a need. And when you see the photos, when we've heard from community members week after week, we know that this is truly a community investment. And I want to take the opportunity to also thank Director Anthony for being creative and your willingness to be creative in finding multiple sources to really make this a community investment. I don't think this is a cost to us. This is an investment. We have so many sources that are being explored. We've mentioned PSVS, even our public residents. Your tax dollars are helping bring this vision to life. And what I'm interested is in seeing Bakersfield be on the map. And this project will put our city on the map, will continue to put our city on the map. This project needs no explanation. It speaks for itself. And this will be a model for the rest of the Central Valley, for the rest of the state. When city planning students are sitting in their classes, this park will be one of those precedent studies that they will be looking at, and how disinvested, underloved communities can and do deserve a state-of-the-art project that will then incentivize more development around it and further the excitement of an area. And I know that that is exactly what this project will do. And Councilmember Arias, as well as Councilmember Gonzalez, have hinted at this. But truly, when we alleviate the symptoms of poverty, of disadvantaged neighborhoods, around lower education rates and access to that, when it's access to facilities and resources and tutors and places to sit in the shade at the very minimum and have open spaces, that's when you alleviate the things that we have to deal with on the other end, whether it's crime, whether it's figuring out how to elevate the literacy rates in our areas. These communities deserve more. They deserve state-of-the-art. And another note, I think, on phasing parks, I might share a different sentiment because one of the parks in my ward is phased, and sentiment changes over time. Priorities change, and trust me, people are also waiting for the next phase of that park. So I'm actually for making sure that we figure out how to get this done at the front end of it. So we don't have another case where Kaiser Park, and the council changes, our administration changes at the city level, and the vision for the city changes, and that's completely natural. But who's left waiting is the residents, and I wouldn't want that to happen to the folks that live in and around MLK Park, because while Kaiser Park is a beautiful facility and it's full every weekend, there is still more to be done. And that is an example in our own city where phasing hasn't proven to be the best example, I would say. And I understand the cost question as well, but if we're concerned about cost, I think we help connect the city with institutions that we know and we're connected with, and truly continue making this a whole community investment. And I'm so happy to hear so many folks are able and willing, because I know we'll all be visiting this park, and we'll be there every MLK Day. We'll be there at the MLK breakfast. So if we're already enjoying those and we're there on the days that matter to the community, and we join them, then it's also on us to meet them and bring this park to life. So those are my comments, and I appreciate seeing the visuals as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Core. Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems like to me when we first started talking about this that the MLK Park was $100 million. And now it's down to 85. Is that because we're not doing the village now, or what happened there?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Weir. The $100 million was sort of really a ballpark. It was really high level out there. I actually had encouraged the team, we got to keep this down. We got to reduce it a little bit because of contingencies and just cost escalations. I think another piece, though, is you're commenting on the village piece. We do have other buckets of money that are going to go towards trying to do property acquisitions for economic development that aren't part of this core project, as well as actually we're looking at some of our own streets infrastructure. So we're pursuing a complete street project on California Avenue that's right next to MLK, but that's probably going to be, in fact, that project alone could end up being, $10 million plus compared to if we look at Chester Avenue as a comparable project that's been pretty high in cost. And so there are other complementary aspects that will come around the park that aren't part of this total project. But again, we want to fund those from those appropriate buckets, and some of those will go after grants as well, and some of those will probably have to be phased out also. But we're very much interested and committed in this being a catalyst for revitalization for the entire neighborhood and village, as we've talked about. But this signature project, we wanted to, keep it at a cost that we thought was attainable.
Okay, thank you. Is it true that the center itself just is about 60 million out of this?
A little less than 60 million.
Just
yes.
under 60 million? Okay, thanks. You've talked about a fiscal plan, and I think it would be helpful for the council if we actually knew what the fiscal plan was. Some projections and here's what we think is going to happen, and then we could update it as we go along. Because I just feel like I'm in the blind on a lot of this stuff.
If I could clarify, Councilmember, great point. Are you saying fiscal plan specific to this project? Or
Actually,
in general?
We have this project, and we have $453 million set up for parks, which includes MLK. But, I don't think we're not getting a vision of the finances. I don't believe that we're getting that, and it would be good to have that because along with these reports, the financial numbers really help. And so if we could do that, that would be awesome. And I don't want this to stop. We need this for the city of Bakersfield. Absolutely for the city of Bakersfield. We can't stop with this. If we're going to do $453 million in parks, that's great. We need to work on that, but we need it for the city. There's parks that we're behind on. There's parks that are waiting for a couple of dollars to fall out of somebody's pocket. It's not good. So, we need to wrap all that up into a financial plan, what it's going to take to bring this all together and what we're going to do for the city of Bakersfield. Because this is, to me, the most exciting part of being on the council since I've been here, and that's 17 years. This is exciting to me. So I want to make sure that it doesn't get cordoned off into some part of the city, and this is already going, that's fine. But I want it throughout the city of Bakersfield. And if we don't decide what we're going to do, it's never going to get done.
Thank you, Council Member. A couple thoughts to respond. We will absolutely create a fiscal forecast and plan for the Parks Master Plan. I think that's one of the next steps as we present this master plan. We're getting some feedback from council about it and finding where we're aligned, finding where we need to make some adjustments. That's good feedback. We can come through our next budget cycle with a fiscal plan for both what are we going to do in this coming year, but also look over really the 20-year time frame of this master plan and outline a framework for how to get at it fiscally, just the parks plan. But I heard you saying, what I heard, I hope I'm right, is we do need to do parks and recreation citywide, but also when you talked about at our last meeting, the vision for the city.
For the city of Bakersfield.
That we are developing that visual image of multiple segments of the city, because again, one picture of the city is a really big picture, so we're going to break it up into pieces. We're going to do visual images of the city that represent what the future looks like for the city. We'll look at fiscal planning to how to make that happen as well. So if you look at a commercial corridor and we see lots of cool, nice, tall buildings with these great boulevards and trees, and what's the fiscal plan for those visualizations to make those a reality?
Well, the visualization would be helpful too.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
But I'll take your feedback from your comments that we'll build fiscal plans, even if it is at least at a high level, to what would it take, what do we estimate it would take to actually build the visualization. We'll do that along with that as, that's what I heard you saying.
That's exactly what I meant. Okay. And just so you know, this council member is never going to vote for debt. So you got it in front of you. And if you make it, that's awesome. But I'm not going to vote for debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Gray.
Well, I think my comment about wants versus needs was very misunderstood, and so I'd like to clear that up for your sake. First of all, I am for an investment at MLK. I think it's very necessary, and Councilmember Arias, I appreciate the fact that you shared your own personal experience as a child and that you had a place to go. And I totally agree with that, to create that, because it does keep children from getting involved with the wrong stuff. If we've given them something, especially if they're latchkey kids, which we have a lot of those all over the city, they need that direction. So I'm very much for that. So when I said wants versus needs, I just want to look at this project through the lens of being physically responsible, to where we don't just throw every wish list piece into this project because somebody says, I want that. It's what is the return on investment going to be if we include this or that or the other? You all know that neighborhood much better than I do. So you you can help in that, and you've lived there, you've experienced it. So I think it's just really important that we view things through the eyes of what is the return on investment? Is this particular part of this project, is it really going to do that much to help these children or these families? Maybe we need to pull that part out of it. So, and Councilmember Gonzalez, that is my clarification on that I know that this is a need for that community, and I think we need to move forward with it. But again, we've got to pay for it, and that's where, you know, what I think about. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Gray. I appreciate that clarification. What I'd like to do is actually make a referral that we organize a special council meeting and visit the community center at MLK. And you know, not every council member is obligated to go to this special meeting, but it would be nice, because I, for one, have been there. I go there often, and I'm complete. Well, somewhat embarrassed by some of the deferred maintenance issues when we talk about some of the, I think there's some significant plumbing issues, other related issues related to electrical, and some real serious issues with the existing structure. Mr. Anthony, you want to comment on that?
Yes and no.
Okay. I know it's not the proudest state, but it's important to recognize, because this is the reality that we're addressing right now.
Yeah, it is, and you know, frankly, there are probably several aspects of that building that are probably out of compliance, just to be completely honest. It's been a challenge to keep up. It's been a challenge to keep it safe and clean for the kids, and you know, quite frankly, it's long overdue for major renovations.
So I would really like us, thank you, Mr. Anthony, I would really like the full council to participate in a tour of the facility so we can all see firsthand what disrepair the building actually is in and how dire an investment is. Thank you.
I don't see any other requests to speak. Mr. Anthony?
Yeah, in the interest of time, we're going to probably just do a quick high-level overview for the rest of the master plan. There are several elements of the plan that we were planning to kind of give you an update, including the Kern River Parkway, the city tree canopy enhancements, but we'll just kind of skip over there and talk about generally where we feel the city is at overall. So I'll turn it back over to Noah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the feedback, and I'll pass on the comments on the visualizations. I think that people will be very proud of that. They're always making us look good. So just with the planning process for the Rec and Parks Master Plan, so we're at the end of phase 3 of 4-phase process, but we wanted to just check in with you to make sure we've identified the right priorities and investment strategy for the 10-year action plan. So just like MLK Park, there's been substantial community involvement. You can see here just the list. Lots of advisory guidance from a variety of groups, tours that I've been fortunate to participate in, interviews with some of you, actually most of you, community connection focus groups, again, directly dealing with members of associations or agencies, countless pop-up events, and then surveys, one system-wide and one for the Kaiser Permanente Sports Village that was well received. Now, the key needs here, these were cross-checked. These are 10 priorities shown and shared with you in the last meeting, but these were cross-checked with a detailed analysis. So the needs are to improve parks, obviously, acquire more parkland, create new trail connections, provide additional shade, that's been a consistent theme throughout, and improve the natural and recreation stewardship along the parkway. So recognizing that the city invested in many parks over the last years to address deferred maintenance and fix inoperable recreation facilities, the plan forecasts renovation needs over the next 10 years. So you can see here It factors the results of conditions assessment conducted early in the process, as well as data gathering, facility life cycles to identify numbers of sites and needing minor improvements versus more substantial improvements, as you see here. There's, for example, 29 need minor improvements. So that would be like, just 5% of the park versus 12 need major renovation. That would mean that, 50% of the park or the asset is needed to be repaired. Now, the recommendation for new parks. Currently, the city standard is 4 acres per 1,000 residents. The city is not meeting that demand, not close. Currently, the existing city is 2.07 acres per 1,000 residents. And so even if you included the undeveloped parks, you're still short 2.77 acres. So we've right-sized this to make it 2.85 acres for 1,000 residents. That said, I think the main recommendation here is that there is a slightly higher LOS, level of service, but we are recommending smaller parks that are closer for people to walk to. Now here you see the new parks where are recommended. Now the big takeaway here is that the areas the circles are where we're suggesting new parks go or could go. Now the colors, all that you have to see here is the takeaway is that the red areas are those that the Healthy Communities Index have indicated are less healthy. And so the yellow areas are faring better, but the red and the orange are the areas that are most in need. And just so you know, the circles represent about half a mile walking distance, which again is what we're recommending. Now, just the tree plan, I'll just quickly mention that the tree plan is meant for downtown and to enhance the canopy across the city, but specifically downtown. That was part of another big component of this. These are just some of the corridors. Some of these are street corridors, others are parks like Mill Creek, and even a partnership with the downtown elementary school. So it just shows the projects that will help achieve other goals like sustainability and downtown aesthetics, as people have very much suggested. Now here are where they are located. Now you see the corridors, the green and the blue corridors and the orange. Now these are just shade corridors for not only people, but also importantly, pollinators, bees and such. Now the Kaiser Permanente the Kern River Parkway, the management plan is also included. There's a lot of plans and components to this. So it's identified goals and strategies, but the full parkway is managed by several city departments, as you know, and owned by several different private and public agencies. So a key goal for this is collaboration. This is one thing that we've heard over and over: increased collaboration and communication to support shared outcomes between the various entities, and this is one of the fundamental goals of our recommendations. Now, you see here there's 8 key river parkway projects. Now, these include anything from finding signage, wayfinding and signage to make it more accessible, but also improvements at key locations that are either highly used or sensitive habitat. Now, the map shows kind of the distribution of these projects across the portion of the parkway managed by the city's Park and Rec Department. That's just, let me be clear about that, it's just managed by the city Park and Rec Department, not the entire corridor. I know I'm moving very fast here, but I know just in the interest of time. So if all of these recommendations are implemented, the cost will likely exceed what seems reasonable or sustainable over the next 10 years. So the Rec and Parks Master Plan will prioritize projects to present a more realistic action plan. So it's important to keep all recommended projects within the plan, because ultimately this helps you achieve grant funding, right? So you have it on your plan, on your docket, and it helps grant funding. So in total, the long-range capital improvement plan includes all of these things that are listed here on the right side: 65 renovated parks, 639 acres of new expanded parkland, the connection to the multi-use trail loop that you see very small here. It's the red dashed line that kind of loops around the city and connects with the Kern River Parkway. And of course, the parkway improvements. Okay, so this is an important step for us. Before us now is to take all of these projects desired by the community and essentially pare it down into a more strategic and realistic action plan. So we're in the midst of this prioritization process that includes public feedback, guidance from the Park Advisory Committee, which we met yesterday, along with directions we hope to receive from Council today. So we want to ask you to help us identify the types of projects to prioritize as well as the general investment amount, so we can consider the types of funding needed to implement the plan. So just a quick, we've had this poll. It's not really a full survey, but it's a poll. Approximately 170 responses so far, many of them in paper that we've entered. And you can see here, we've asked, so what would be your preferred investment level? If I could do it, this is what people said. 146 said invest more, 26 said invest the same. Now, we asked if you had $100, how would you spend $100 in types of parks, in types of improvements? And of course, the winner was repair and replace worn or older park features, which again is a theme that we've heard over and over in terms of the quality of the parks and the condition of the parks. Take care of existing assets along with improving park safety is another big issue that's relevant, we know, in MLK Park. And trail development. People want more mobility, more active mobility and active transportation to get around and through the city. So with this information, we have begun to identify key projects to include within the 10-year action plan. So current priority initiatives are noted here, recognizing that some projects as the MLK Park revitalization help achieve a variety of community priorities. So this list that you see in front of you reflects the importance of taking care of existing parks while moving forward with the development of 11 sites that were already promised to many nearby residents. It balances the need to enhance existing sites while also responding to new growth. So the action plan takes into account these 3 projects with funds identified for construction that are nearly completed. So the smaller Sunset Mayflower Park, in East Bakersfield, I think just recently or is about to have the grand opening. All right, so with this in mind, the potential 10-year action plan may include the elements shown here. Preliminary planning cost suggests that this level of development may cost around $450 million over the next 10 years. This does not include the cost of new park development, which ideally should be funded through park impact fees. So this purpose of the purpose of this preliminary list is for discussion only. And be clear, it's just for discussion, since we are still collecting feedback on priorities. This amount would not be entirely funded by the city. The costs do not account for outside investments such as grants, donations, and partnerships that would offset the total cost that you see here. Now, this list includes approximately 1/3 of the improvements and enhancements to the existing parks and that residents would like to see. So we may want to increase that number. It includes all of the tree canopy and Kern River projects shown earlier in this presentation. It places an emphasis on downtown Bakersfield in conjunction with other city initiatives. It includes 25% of the planned trail corridors, recognizing that some trails will be planned in conjunction with new residential growth, as is happening in West Ming and Highgate developments. So, this desired action here is the potential projects noted in the previous slide would require approximately $44.8 million per year over the next 10 years. So some of these projects may be funded through grants, donations, naming rights, and partnerships. So is this reasonable? It's the main question. Are there specific priorities you would like to see included in the 10-year action plan? Thank you very much for your feedback.
Thank you for your presentation. Of the survey respondents thus far, how evenly are they distributed among the 7 wards? Do you have any sense of that?
That was one of the questions that we asked, and it was in fact by a pin. And so I wish I could bring it up, but it is very widely distributed, evenly distributed throughout the city. And we can share that with you. I don't know the exact numbers though, but yeah, at first glance.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. If you're just asking for feedback from council members right now, I would go back to the prioritization survey results slide. And the top 3, repair and replace worn or older park features. Number 2, build more bike and pedestrian trails. And number 3, enhance the urban tree canopy would be my 3, along with the 4th of developing those parks that have been promised to neighborhoods that we've heard from Councilmember Core, and I think other council members who've signaled that there are these expectations that we've established as a city. We need to really have a concrete plan to develop those parks. That would be my 4 priorities. Thanks.
Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of comments. I agree with Vice Mayor Gonzalez's assessment, although I will add that it's, to my knowledge, many of these parks that were promised, I don't think we have the land for all of them, do we?
There are a couple that we're still waiting on some acquisition for. You're right. At least 2 of them.
Okay.
That's correct.
So if I could just add to that list, we will also need to set aside some dollars to go after and acquire that land so that we can eventually deliver on that promise. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe the land has been identified. It's just that they're not in any stage of development, so there's no dedication process in a lot of them.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then if we could go back to the slide about new parks and where the needs are throughout the community, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, the circle slide, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Slide 37. There you go, point that way. There it is. Yes.
I just wanted to highlight one fact that there is a need for parks in just about every piece of the city of Bakersfield. In just about all 7 wards, it looks like there's varying degrees of need, but you know, based on this visual, it looks like the greatest needs are in Ward 1 Southeast Bakersfield, South Bakersfield for certain, and then also Northeast Bakersfield as well. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I just need to bring to your attention, we have not identified on this map the needs for north of the river, but they also have undeveloped land. And just to mention that, we had a meeting with them today, and there will be quite a bit of collaboration moving forward with our plan versus their needs as well.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that. I just wanted to lift this up and highlight the fact that you know, that there are certainly parts of town that need more help when it comes to park space and green space, but then also to highlight that there are needs just about everywhere throughout town. So I think this should be at least a major priority for the council to start to chip away at this, make the investments where needed, and you know, potentially get savvy with you know, potentially, you know, financing some of these investments. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is I'm really excited about the tree canopy conversation. Really grateful that it's going to be happening in downtown Bakersfield. But I also wanted to lift up the fact that there are only very few, maybe a handful of parks throughout the city of Bakersfield that have a true tree canopy. You know, I remember growing up, always asking my dad, "Dad, why do we have to go all the way out to Hart Park?" And the fact was because, you know, it actually had a true tree canopy, and it was about 10, 15 degrees cooler than the neighborhood park near our community. So have we thought about that, and are we going to be implementing, you know, some additional
we
tree
didn't
canopies?
get into that level of details, but not only are we focused on the downtown area in terms of our tree canopy plan and probably some immediate improvements, but there is language about developing standards that we can use citywide, and a lot of that is a per acre, per park is the amount of trees that we're planting moving forward. So that will be inclusive of that final draft of the master plan.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. Great plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. I mean, I think this gives us, for me, it represents a lot of work, but it's almost a starting point as opposed to a finishing point because it's broad, very broad brush, very general stuff. Obviously, we'll end up having to prioritize. We're unlikely, well, unless we get a lot of grants, to spend $44 million a year. We first have to be sure we have more than that in roads that are under standard that we need to upgrade in our city. So we have infrastructure all over. But I would make a suggestion that as far as the parks that are needed in the different areas, and my ward probably needs the least because it's the newest and there's a park policy in place, so the developers, i.e. the homeowners, all had to pay for their parks and you couldn't build development without it. So the areas we don't have it is before there was a policy that made people pay for a park when they bought the house and there was money there. Yeah, I think it would be productive if each council member took the research you've done, but they know their ward. I don't know Ward 1 real well. I don't know, but they know the needs. And rather than, well, there's some circles here and stuff on a map. I'd really like to know, or have each ward member say, this is what my ward, it's my ward, I know the people, I represent them. Here's what I think, at a minimum, we need in new parks in my ward, okay? And if one needs new equipment, you can say that too. But mainly, this is where we just, and you can do the nice to have, but I'd rather say this is the minimum. We really need, I don't know, Eric, maybe you need 3 parks. I don't know, you know. And these are the general areas. Of course, you'd have to find land. I doubt we're going to buy a house and tear them down. But so it has to be feasible, but kind of, it'd really be nice to know from the council person who really is in charge of that ward, what do you think your needs are and how would you prioritize them? What do you really want to see, or you and your citizens in that ward? And then, and make it the minimum. This is what, if we possibly can find the money, this is what we ought to do. I'd like to compare that to this, and I'm not sure that it wouldn't look very different. And it might not cost us $450 million or whatever was budgeted for that. It might cost us $200 million or something. And you could say, I need a 3-acre park here. I need a 6-acre park here. I can find some land to get more micro, and we'd be thrilled if we got those parks in it. And I don't think I'm going to find many in mine. So they can use my funds, okay? I don't think we're going to need them in a lot of where after the policy was in place, we started building parks. But I think that would be really useful that we get more micro, and you might only, Eric, come up with, well, I'm going to have 7 parks, but they're only going to take up 12 acres. I don't know, because this is where we need them, and this would be fine here. But I think that would be really helpful, because I have a feeling at this level is so general that we're never really going to figure out what parks to build. Everything's, well, that was Eric's responsibility. No, that was Rick's responsibility. No, that was Christian's. Well, I'll do this, and 5 years from now, we really didn't get any parks. So, number 1, I think that would be helpful. Number 2, I think the people, it was interesting how they prioritize what they really, if we have to spend money, we spend it, because they were pretty right on. I mean, I think the number 1 to me is figuring out how to build the 10 or 11 parks we've already committed to. I mean, we owe these people parks. They actually paid fees to have it built. We'll address the problem in a minute. It's not enough with inflation, but we got to build those parks. That's the highest priority. I think MLK is right up there at the top. After that, I kind of split between Kern River Parkway and downtown, because when I think of the parkway, I think of the trail more than the vegetation inside the river. And the community really likes the trail. We got all sorts of dead trees, missing trees, broken sprinkler, Cleaning up the trail, I don't know what it costs, but that's community asset, cuts across town. That's a pretty high priority. And we still have to be thinking about downtown. So you know, those are kind of my, I really don't like, I don't want to give the press this budget because I think everybody panics. There's this foreign, it's a dream budget. Maybe it ought to be over 20 years. I don't know what we need 152 million for Mesa Marin. I'm sorry, Councilman Weir, but you know, can I get 100 million off of that?
$2 million?
100, can I get 100 million from you?
We might have enough for two parks.
To cut the cost and, you know, I don't know, the 99 million, by the way, the 10 new parks, those for the most part were the new policy where the land had to be paid for and the improvements by the builder, giving the city the fees. Now, and there's 5 of them, and apparently you mentioned to me that the development's completed and there's no park there, and it's because, hey, there's not, the fee wasn't adequate with all the inflation to cover it. And, well, there's nothing we can do about that anyway on those, so we're gonna have to figure out a way to cover it, and maybe the fees cover half. But I disagree that it's $1 million an acre for a 10-acre park, and I can prove that to you. And maybe we just build a nice 6-acre park instead.
Yeah.
We give them a nice park, it's the best we can do, and because it sounds like we're gonna have to fund that out of our pocket. And you may have to program it over 3 or 4 years, but get it done. You know, it's gonna be part of an annual budgeting, but that's a commitment we made. You can't go back and charge them a higher fee anyway. But moving forward, I sent to Development Committee a request that we come up with a way to a new park policy. You know, we can't raise the fees. I mean, more than $25,000 for the minimum new home. So if you want another $10,000 of the price of a home, that's not feasible. We can't raise the fee 1 penny, which means we're either going to have to shrink the park or have that same park cover twice as much area. So we're done with these 10-acre parks, even if they're $750,000 an acre. Yeah. So we need to address that. But let's be sure we take care of those people we made the commitment to, and that we kind of study ways to build nice parks that don't cost $1 million an acre.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. And I know that we certainly have thrown a lot at you in this brief time. I didn't expect to spend so much time on MLK, but I think it was well worth it. May I make a suggestion is that give you a little more time to digest what we've given you, and then I'd rather kind of get this right rather than push through just so we can meet some sort of timeline. And it's up to you. We can either be invited back to discuss this, or we can have individual meetings about some of your priorities as it matched with some of the surveys. Your perspectives are certainly different in that I agree with you. I think that we've made commitments to these communities and we have not delivered on that promise. So that's certainly a higher priority for me as well. But it would be interesting in getting all of your feedback. And I don't think MIG would have a problem with setting up some individual virtual conversations so we can really get down and making sure that we have the right size and the right fit for your particular ward.
Mr. Anthony, Councilmember Smith would like to make a comment, and then we can move on.
Thank you, Mayor. I just appreciate you meeting with NOR. I know I talked to you about that, and I think that, you know, it helps us move forward with grant opportunities and stuff when we show the whole city, and that, you know, we are also short in that area, which is most award for is now NOR. And so I appreciate that and look forward to that information being added to the map. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Mr. Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor. I had just some wrap-up comments, but does that conclude most of the council comments? Yes. Okay. So I do like Director Anthony's suggestion that we can do some additional follow-up, make sure we gather that feedback. We'd be happy to do another workshop, but I think it could be really productive to do some additional one-on-ones. As noted, the plan was, this was really a checkpoint. It wasn't the final. This is to get feedback to guide us in creating that 10-year prioritized plan. And then my last comment is just to provide a little bit of context on the funding piece, and we'll do more of this as we come forward and say, you know, is a $400 million or $44 million a year, you know, is that feasible? That's also having, again, what Councilmember Weir asked for, a fiscal plan for this, you know, a project itself. to give some early context to what we could share those, I think we'll give also like a 2 to 3 year history of what has our level of spend been over the last 3 years, because you'd probably be surprised that it's been pretty hefty. So over the last 2 years, we have received $6 million in park grants, and that was before we had dedicated grant writer and even dedicated, lobbying efforts. I think we're getting a lot more sophisticated at our ability to go get funds, and so we've received $6 million in, well, it's a little more than $6 million actually. It's close to $7 million in grants for parks in the last couple of years. We've received, more than $10 million in grants for trails. We've been spending about $6 to $8 million a year out of PSVS on park improvements and catch-up. We had some significant catch-up work to do. Do I think that's sustainable over a 20-year period? Probably not, frankly, but over the next 10 years, as we continue to do some catch-up, I think that's a reasonable target. And then just to some of those numbers, as Councilmember Freeman noted, we're in the middle of a conversation about what is our standard and policy. That's part of this conversation as well, is do we revisit what is the standard acreage? And then we've explored some really creative ideas about joint or concurrent uses, getting that can reduce cost and also bring in some resources and revenues. I think as we revise our policies a little bit and get creative and find some of these concurrent uses, I think we'll be able to get at this issue in really meaningful ways. So there's a little bit of cost savings, but also I think we're going to be pretty successful at getting pretty significant funding on a regular basis to help us down this path.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to make a motion to receive and file, but just to clarify, I just want to check in. I heard several different recommendations or points of direction tonight. Number one is that we check in with all of the council members individually and get some feedback. What I would like to ask is that we do that once we've sort of concluded the public input phases, so some sense of sequencing, and we kind of get a sense of what the public has said, and kind of have a chance to analyze and digest all of that feedback. But that we continue with the 10-year action plan, perhaps with an addendum of the next 10 years, so we have a 20-year outlook, that we really hone in on that finance plan as well, and that we continue to press forward. So with that, a motion to receive and file.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes. Madam Clerk, are we having issues, or we just need a little lag? We're having.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gray absent.
Thank you. And with that, this meeting stands adjourned at 5:07, and we'll gather together at 5:20, and the meeting should be relatively short.
I need to reach out to him too, because we talked.
I like doing it right down the middle right here so we can see the things. Right there. And if our clerk friends could just stuck. A little more, there you go, right there. And then
We apologize for the delay. We're still waiting for council members so we can have a quorum. Thank you all for being here.
Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 regular City Council meeting of October 25th, 2023. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Arias,
Here.
Councilmember Weir,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
I'm here.
Councilmember Freeman,
Here.
Councilmember Gray, and Councilmember Core.
Here.
Thank you, and welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. We apologize for the delay in the start. Welcome to Professor Holmes' class at Bakersfield College. How many of you are from BC? A lot of you. You're making up our audience. Anyone from CSUB here tonight? Welcome, Roadrunners. Welcome, Renegades. And it's always good to have our students here participating in the process. We have the pleasure tonight of having Pastor Rusty Rhodes, who's a pastor at Olive Knolls and also principal at Olive Knolls Nazarene School, where they have about 500 students and are expanding and growing rapidly. So thank you so much for your service. We were to have a student lead the pledge, but I don't see the student here, so Councilmember Core will be leading the pledge. Would you all please stand? Pastor?
Are we having the pledge first? Or the prayer?
God, then country.
All right, you got it. Let's bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, we hallow your name and give you praise. You have blessed our city, our state, and our nation with freedom and liberty. The abundance we enjoy comes from your hand and no other. We humble ourselves before you. May your will be done in the city of Bakersfield. We pray that these fine men and women of our council will seek your wisdom as they lead this municipality. May their leadership guide our lives into the kind of community that is filled with peace and respect. With it, Bakersfield set a different tone than the bitterness and rancor we see throughout our nation and the world. We pray for the peace of Jerusalem and all those in harm's way this day. Your will be done. And may your people, who are called by your name, humble ourselves, pray, seek your face, and renounce the wickedness of our nature. Please hear us. Forgive our sins. Heal our land. In the name of Jesus, we pray it. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Salute, pledge.
Thank you, and you may be seated. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. Please be courteous in the use of cameras and videos. For safety reasons and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the council chambers or in the lobby. Applause is allowed during the presentations portion of the meeting, but not during other portions of the meeting. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting, prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public statements.
In keeping with the Council's resolution, the public statements portion is now divided into two periods. There's a period for items listed on the meeting agenda and items not on the meeting agenda. Statements for items listed on tonight's agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total per agenda item. The consent calendar as a whole constitutes one agenda item. Statements regarding items not listed on the agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give them to the clerk, who will give copies to the council. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give your completed card to the city clerk. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on tonight's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda portion. Those speakers will be called during that non-agenda portion of the meeting. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. However, due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, the council cannot take action when an item isn't on the agenda. The council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items listed on tonight's agenda?
Mayor Go, we have not received any public speaker cards for items listed on tonight's agenda.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers for items not listed on tonight's agenda?
Mayor Go, we have received 5 public speaker cards for items not listed on tonight's agenda. The first public speaker is Armando Garcia.
Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Armando Garcia. I am a resident of Ward 1 of the city of Bakersfield. I am here today on behalf of the Young Democrats of Kern County. I wanted to address the COVID-19 mask mandate resolution that was brought and passed 2 weeks ago, spearheaded by Ken Weir. I firmly believe that this resolution was brought up in bad faith. Firstly, this is something that has been brought up and is being pushed by petty political agendas and not something that is actually backed by science. Secondly, COVID-19 severely impacted the lives of not just everyone standing in this room, but beyond that. To focus on pushing such a mundane resolution is a waste of time and is taking away attention from issues that are seriously affecting our communities. And lastly, when this resolution was passed, I want to make it clear that it was only a council of 4 members. So I really believe that the city of Bakersfield was not properly represented when this resolution was passed. And I demand that you pull this resolution and consider taking a vote on this with a full council, with full proper representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Next speaker, please.
Linda Johnson, followed by Noe Garcia.
Welcome, Ms. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor Go and City Council members. My name is Linda Johnson LeBlanc, and I am the organizational lead for Worksites on the Blue Zones Project Bakersfield team. The initiative is sponsored by Adventist Health, California Resources Corporation, and the City of Bakersfield. Our collective goal is to become a Blue Zone certified community where people want to come live, work, play, and worship. I would like to acknowledge and thank the City of Bakersfield for being a sponsor and great champion of the project. We approach our work through the transformation of people, places, and policy. I have colleagues that work in the people and policy sectors. The places sector is comprised of restaurants, grocery stores, work sites, and schools. My specific role as a lead is to work with work sites or employers to help improve employee well-being. We conduct this work through a pledge process, and each entity or organization agrees or pledges to implement evidence-based practices that have shown to significantly improve individual organizational health and well-being, or verify that an existing worksite practice meets the Blue Zones Project criteria. One component of the Bakersfield certification criteria is for a minimum of 52 diverse employers to become Blue Zones Project approved. Diversity includes organization industry and size, ownership and employee populations of varying race, gender, and ethnicity. We want every resident to have awareness and access to the Blue Zones Project principles for life longevity and well-being. My ask of you is to review the document shared that details some of the areas of opportunity where I have yet to make a connection and/or where we would like to formulate partnerships and allies. If you have suggestions or can connect me with someone via a warm introduction, please contact me. This initiative
Ms.
requires...
LeBlanc, your time is up. Can you bring your comments to a close, please?
All right. This initiative requires the experience, expertise, and networks of local leaders to be a success, and we appreciate your support in helping to move this mission forward. Thank you in advance.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor, if I can make a comment.
Councilmember Arias.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson-LeBlanc, thank you so much for taking me up on my offer and joining us here tonight. I really appreciate all the great work that you're doing and that Blue Zones is doing for our community. If I could make an ask of staff to please reach out to Ms. Johnson-LeBlanc and see if there's some opportunities for us to help her. She's made it very easy for us to follow and see exactly who she needs contacts with here in our community, and I think the least we could do is make that introduction. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Noe Garcia, followed by Richard.
Hello, good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor Go. My name is Noé Garcia. I work for the Dolores Huerta Foundation as Director of Civic Engagement and Government Relations. I'm here speaking on behalf of the resolution that the city passed to not enforce any future COVID-19 mandates. I'm in opposition of that mandate for a variety of reasons. I agree with the previous speaker on really that the full city was not represented during this past vote, and I am requesting that you all pull that mandate and vote on it again with full representation by the whole council. This mandate does not protect our community. It does not take into consideration the risks to the individuals with disabilities who are immunocompromised, and really just does not take into consideration the impact that not enforcing these future mandates has, and is a distraction of really getting to the work of building our economy here, really providing jobs for folks here, building our infrastructure. This is not in those goals of what this city council has outlined. And so I really encourage you all to reconsider this resolution, really put it out. I was appalled when I saw this in the news, and I really want to see some action being taken by the council members. And so I will be following up with you all and being connected to this council to see if you all are going to actually pull this resolution or bring it up to another vote. So I look forward to seeing that on the next agenda item or hearing discussion today. So I thank you all for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Next speaker, please.
Richard, followed by Yesenia Acampo.
Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, my name is Richard Quiles, and I am here today on behalf of Building Healthy Communities of Kern. The goal of our organization is to advance health and racial equity for everyone here in Kern County. That being said, the pandemic of 2020 affected many communities in Kern County, especially those communities that are underserved and underrepresented. That is why I am here today urging you to take into consideration the safety protocols put forth by the state and federal government regarding COVID, as it is crucial for the health of our underserved communities to be protected and be taken into consideration. As the previous speakers have said, it does seem like all of Bakersfield was not included in that decision making, and we would like to see if you guys, if the council could re-vote on that and take it into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yesenia Ocampo.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Yesenia Ocampo. I'm a Bakersfield resident, and I'm also the health program director with the Dolores Huerta Foundation. I'm here to voice my disagreement with the resolution that was passed in the last meeting about the mandate, The global pandemic and the intensification of uncertainty around the world compounded the need to organize COVID-19 relief programs. In 2021, DHF, in partnership with Building Healthy Communities and various organizations, came together to establish the United Against COVID Coalition and work to provide COVID health education and outreach. To date, we hosted over 140 clinics and 10,000 doses in Kern County alone. Vaccine clinics include vital information, including hot food meals when possible, food baskets that we have served to over 14,000 families. Beyond responding to the immediate resources, we have secured a partnership with UC Merced Community Labor Center to launch a community needs assessment in the Central Valley, including in the city of Bakersfield. The purpose of the community needs assessment is to clearly articulate the needs of the most underinvested communities that are trying to recover from the long-lasting effects of the pandemic. The goal is to support an equitable economic workforce. The decision to ignore mandates will affect thousands of community members most impacted by the community, and it will especially compromise the livelihood of essential workers, including farm workers, whose work generate over $32 billion annually just in the San Joaquin Valley. We ask the city of Bakersfield to vote to rescind the resolution against future COVID mandates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ocampo. Madam City Clerk, do we have any other speakers?
That was our final speaker, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Consent calendar items.
Mayor, if I may, I had requested to speak.
Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you. One, I want to acknowledge those who are here and spoke. But first, I want to apologize to my constituents for missing the last city council meeting due to work. As folks may know, this is not a full-time job or council like in other cities, especially in top 10 cities within the state. So I also work another full-time job and had to be there for my commitments to work. In acknowledging the comments of our community members, feedback from constituents that I still receive up until today, expressing their rightful disappointment with the vote, as well as with my absence, to which I apologize for. I hear you, and I am very I have much regret for missing that, but I was under the impression that, you know, the decisions made on this dais would be well informed. And it's true, in this moment, there is no COVID surge happening that'll mandate masks, as our experts have shared with us. And in response, I want to share that it should be the experts that are guiding us, and that being the medical experts that navigated us through that first pandemic. Just as we rely on engineers to build safe and sound buildings for us, we also should rely on our medical experts for our care, do we not? I believe we do. We resort to the experts for making those decisions for us. And a lot of conversations were had about choice at the last city council meeting, the choice to mask if someone is sick or is subject to an illness based on being immunocompromised. That is, you know, a long-term illness, being pregnant, so many, the list goes on, but it's their choice, right? And if we want to talk about freedom and choices, you know, we protect those who are most vulnerable in most of the decisions and even different kind of topics that we've talked about here on the city council. And I think the signal has gone far and wide of the decisions made at the last city council meeting, and kind of the political point and maneuvers of that decision are very clear, but I also agree. I don't think we need this resolution at our city. I think passing this resolution makes our governing body, our city administration, look ill-informed, ill-advised, and kind of out of touch with our community's needs and what they're actually worried about, which is their living conditions in this moment, with rent being too high, a fentanyl crisis, road safety, pedestrian safety. The list goes on, but those are top of mind for folks. Of course, the kind of the impeding COVID-19 is as well. But again, our medical experts have navigated us through that to be able to gather here in this forum today. And I want to make a referral, and I look to our city attorney to rescind the resolution, or at least begin that process, so that we can at least start rescinding this resolution, and for the very reason that we don't need it in our city. And as shared, it virtually has no power. So I think we're better than this. I truly believe that at the city level. And for those who think and say that this is done and over, that the pandemic has gone, there are folks who are living with this today. But folks are, again, still expressing their concerns that something like this would pass at this council, and decisions made even just 2 weeks ago simply don't go away. So I think the political performance worked. I think it had its moment. I think it's time that we step up and meet the expectations of our residents at this dais. And so I'd like to make, like I said, I'd like to make the referral to rescind this resolution that states not to enforce any future COVID-19 mandates or impose penalties within our city jurisdiction.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Kaur, as well, for making that referral, and thank you to everybody who came out to speak tonight. I'll just recall the early weeks of the pandemic, in those early months where, like everyone else, did not know what to do other than to shelter and do what it took to protect your family. Working with the County Public Health Department and also with County Supervisor Leticia Perez, we were able to set up the very first drive-through station where we were doing active testing to see if you or your family member was sick. And we had lines of hundreds, if not thousands, of cars on a daily basis. And that was to make sure that we could protect ourselves, we could protect our families, and protect our community. And you know, it blows my mind that we are now having a conversation about a resolution to completely reject any help and any guidance from the professional experts on this very topic. I think it's poor policy. I think it's frankly a wedge issue. I think that, you know, historically, members of this dais, not to say the ones that are up here today, but in the past have utilized this platform to pass similar resolutions, and I think it's poor precedent. It is irresponsible government, and we must take action. And I appreciate the community members for coming out tonight. I support Councilmember Kaur's referral, and I would like to ask our city attorney to advise what those next steps could look like.
Madam City Attorney.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I understand the referral and I will do the research, but I will tell you that as I sit here right now, it's not my understanding that you can rescind something for at least a year because the vote was taken and it was not done without prejudice. So again, I understand the referral, I will do the research, and I will bring back what I can discover, but that is my current understanding as I sit here today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 7A through 7Z for approval.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one council member who wishes to recuse themselves for an item. Councilmember Freeman, if you want to read.
Yeah, I have a potential conflict with item 7Y. I have a potential conflict with item 7Y.
7Y. And also, we will pull item 7F for separate consideration at the request of Councilmember Weir. With that, I will make a motion to adopt the consent agenda, except for item 7F.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Gray absent.
Thank you. And now item 7F.
Motion to approve item 7F.
You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Weir voting no and Councilmember Gray absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Council and Mayor statements.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, I have a few referrals to make tonight. Number one, yesterday the community learned of a generous contribution and donation made by Ms. Cynthia Lake to the Fox Theater Foundation for the purposes of the purchase of the Now Theater. This will be a huge boost to downtown Bakersfield and downtown's nightlife. The Fox Theater was saved 30 plus years ago, and thank God it was. It has been a great amenity to our downtown. And now the Nile, in similar fashion, will serve as a wonderful entertainment venue and help spur growth in the downtown core. And Ms. Lake has already, to date, contributed over $10 million in investment to the Fox Theater and to other foundations for the purposes of redeveloping the section between the Nile Theater and the Fox Theater. And so tonight I'd like to make a referral that the council consider naming these blocks between the Nile and the Fox Theater the Lake Entertainment and Arts District. Number two is we have seen a number of private development and investment happening within our downtown core. And oftentimes, the city places expensive, costly requirements for off-site improvements, curb, gutter, sidewalk, for these projects to become approved. I would like this city to consider a resolution that no longer requires off-site improvements for projects that occur in the downtown core. And I'd like to send this to Planning and Development Committee for consideration and study. Number three is just recently this last week, Get Bus Board had a strategic planning session, and in that meeting, there was a conversation related to an idea that I have been championing for several years now, to establish a downtown circulator, some sort of a connector between downtown Bakersfield and Old Town Kern in order for us to help both neighborhoods and help visitors get from to and fro without having to enter a vehicle. This has been a project that has gotten some traction within Get Bus and within the community, but I think we ought to send a message to Get that we would very much like to see this sort of downtown connector. In many other communities, you see a trolley or you see some other vehicle that is able to connect members of the public who are on foot to another neighborhood of distinct character that is just beyond walking distance. So I'd like us to adopt a resolution in support of the downtown circulator and send that to Get Bus and to their board. And then finally, there have been a number of smoke shops that have popped up in Ward 2 that have been a point of concern for my constituents. I would like us to, at the Safe and Healthy Communities, Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, explore an extension of our recently adopted tobacco retail license to revisit the Muni Code that will regulate smoke shops in not just in Ward 2, but throughout the city of Bakersfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
I just wanted to briefly share with the other council members that I just got back from a trip to Germany. It was about 3 weeks in Germany, primarily Frankfurt, but Heidelberg, Mainz, some other small cities. And I wrote a note to Mr. Stracklaus about roads. And what was really interesting to observe is that within the city, it's the core of the city, comparable to our downtown. Almost all the roads were one way, no more than 20 feet wide, which is what our alley, this is for a city with 1 million or 2 million people, no wider than our normal alleys. And they usually had parking on that. So the one lane was 8 feet for parking, and there was one lane, and it just worked fine for millions of people. And they didn't have any arterials. They had collectors instead, which would move around the city to move traffic. And sometimes they were they usually were separated by very large, you could call it a median or just spaces, trees, whatever, but they might be 100 or 200. They weren't necessarily right next to each other. It seemed they used about 1/2 the square footage of pavement we do, at 1/2 the cost, 1/2 the CO2, 1/2 the maintenance, 1/2 the replacement. And I thought, that's a lot smarter than the way America does it. And when we look at our downtown vision plan, I hope we do someday, and if we look at future areas that are new village centers, and maybe if we're even looking at revitalized areas like areas around MLK Park or something, that we think about one-way streets where there's plenty of access. Nobody seemed to have any problem with one way this way and coming back one way. You see this in some of our downtown cities already. But I just started thinking of the huge savings when what is it? It's more than $1 million a lane mile now for all this pavement that stretches that, and you look at our city, because we're spread out, we have trouble affording. That's why our cities are not our roads are not in the ideal condition. We don't have the money. It costs so much when you have this much pavement area to put in, so that raises the cost of all the housing dramatically. That's all charged to the new homeowner and to the commercial. It's just something we should really be cognizant of as we move forward in redevelop or new development, that we really look hard at one-way streets and much narrower streets. Just if nothing else, to save money, you have half the noise of two, when they're going like this, but your noise is calmed down. When they're narrower, the people slow down. It just, it makes for a better atmosphere as well as saving enormous amounts of money. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give some kudos to a couple of special folks at the city staff level. Greg and his team have done just tremendous work with standing up the ad hoc on transportation committee. And we had a meeting earlier this week, and every single meeting it seems like they have some great progress on a lot of projects to improve bicycle and pedestrian safety. A couple in Ward 1, really proud of the work that we've done on Laurel and Sandra Drive with having the first speed humps installed in, I think, over a decade. So we're really proud of that work, and I just want to say thank you to my colleagues, both Councilmembers Smith and Kaur, for heading that up with me, and really proud of that work. But want to continue to push forward. Tonight we've also heard about some of the good work that we're trying to do regarding tree canopies. We recognize that in the summers, oftentimes it can get up to 110, 112 degrees, and folks are looking for an opportunity to really cool down. We continue to push and make investments into curb, gutter, and sidewalk, in addition to cycle tracks, so that we can ensure that, in a safe way, we are creating opportunities for everybody to use our roadways, not just the automobiles. So with that, tonight I want to ask staff to review projects from a resiliency and a sustainability lens and perspective to create a short but focused and prioritized list of important projects with broad community support and significant grant funding opportunity at the state and federal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Corr.
I'm going to echo the sentiment shared by Councilmember Arias and show my appreciation for my subcommittee members, ad hoc committee members. Councilmember Smith spends a lot of time, outside of the committee, also working with staff in order to bring forward just the language and the vision, and really it's a collaborative effort, and you really don't see the work until you're at the committee or it returns to council, but a lot of time goes into really creating a vision for how we're making multimodal safety a reality here in the city. So I want to thank Council Members Smith and Arias for all the time and effort and vision and creativity that's going into that. We had a very exciting presentation from our high-speed rail folks yesterday, and it was a welcome update and receiving some news and also some visuals about of a station and really looking forward into the future. And though it always feels a little bit further away, we were so happy to see progress being made there. And our friends at Caltrans were also in attendance. So really that joint effort, as well as our Public Works Division and staff were all in attendance, as well as our traffic engineer. So it's really a collaborative effort and a united front in that respect. So it was a very positive and optimistic update to receive that from our high-speed rail folks. So, getting from downtown San Francisco to downtown LA in 3 hours, we're getting closer to that reality, and our Central Valley segment is coming closer to being a reality. For folks in attendance today, it's predicted to be somewhere between 2030 and 2033 to be initially operational, and that's with our fingers crossed. So that's just a small update, at least from our committee, that I'd like to share, and wanted to thank my colleagues again. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Corr. I don't see any other requests for comment, and so we stand adjourned at 6:02. And students, just so you're aware, this is an unusually short meeting, but it is. Thank you for being here.